All right. So, welcome everyone to Oppia's first strategy meeting of 2021. Normally, there was a time back when we were smaller when we would do these every quarter. But now, with so many folks helping out in so many different capacities from all over the world, things get a little bit harder to organize, but we will try. So in this all hands meeting, we'll give an update on all the things that we've been doing in 2020 and give you a sneak preview of how this leads into what's going to happen for 2021. So for those of you who are new to the community, I want to give a brief recap of where we are. Our aim is to improve access to high quality, affordable education for all students, especially those who can't attend school on a regular basis or those students whose school doesn't give them a good educational experience. And a lot of online lessons, they scale, the online medium scales, but it's very important to make lessons in that medium that are effective as well. And so one of the things we've been doing over the past few years is a lot of work to figure out how to teach well in these environments. And we've actually met with some successes, which we'll tell you more about in this meeting. So there's more going on at Oppia than I can talk about myself. So I've actually asked lots of representatives from different teams to give an update on the plans for the parts of the project that they are responsible for. And hopefully this gives you a chance to meet a lot of the amazing people who have been helping out with the project over the past few years. We'll also open it up to Q&A at the end. So we have a thing called Slido. And if you want to ask questions, please go to the Slido link. We'll post that in the chat. I'll do that here. Thank you. So Natasha's posted a Slido link in the chat. So please go to that link and ask questions. You'll find that you can actually vote up questions using the thumbs up button. And we will answer the top ones, as many as we can get through before the end of the hour. It's totally fine to add new questions while speakers are presenting. So take a look. Okay, so to give again a recap of the background of the project, our work focuses mainly on trying to improve equitable access to education. You may be wondering why we do this, since there are so many online learning sites available, but most free online learning materials actually disproportionately benefit the more higher socioeconomic students. For example, they assume that students are already literate, they assume that they have the motivation, they have good internet connectivity, they know the basic subjects and so on. And this is actually simply not true for quite a lot of students around the world. And so although these platforms actually help everyone improve, they also inadvertently increase the gap between the higher socioeconomic and lower socioeconomic status students. And so what Oppia wants to do is to narrow the gap. So we want to move more to the picture on the left so that the lower socioeconomic status students benefit more. But if you want to do that, we actually have to design starting from that use case, which is quite difficult because you have to find a way to meet the students where they are and try and help break down some of the barriers to education that they face. A lot of this is further aggravated by COVID-19. Which means that a lot of students are now studying at home, and so there's an increased demand for online learning solutions. So in today's world, our work is increasingly relevant, and as you can imagine, there's still quite a bit to do. But as a community, we can come together to build something bigger than what each of us can individually contribute and make a meaningful difference. And I actually added this slide in at the last minute because I was looking at Oppia's new homepage, which will come out like in a couple of days. And I thought it was very nice and a good exemplification of the sorts of things that we are trying to do here. So although 2020, as we know, was a pretty tough year for everyone, on the Oppia side, we made quite a lot of progress as a team and as a community. So now I'd like to turn it over to Akshay and Kevin to tell you about some of the achievements we've made on the platform side.
Thanks, Sean. And hi, everyone. I'm Kevin. I'm one of the leads of the Learner and Creator Experience team, along with Akshay. And I want to talk a bit about some of the cool things that we did in 2020. So firstly, a major achievement that we had last year was the launch of our curated lessons through the Classroom page. So now students have access to our very first curriculum, which is basic mathematics. These are well structured into topics, stories, and chapters. Along with this, we also have features such as practice questions and revision cards, which allow students to practice their newly attained skills. I also want to highlight some of the other features that we built. Can you go to the next slide, please? So some of the other useful features that we built that are both facing the learners as well as the creators are the new math interactions. So these are currently used in our curated lessons uh, for teaching things such as mathematical equations and expressions. We have also redesigned our editor pages to be more user-friendly. And another feature that we introduced was the diagram editor. So this allows creators to add interesting diagrams to their lessons. So these were just a few highlights from last year. We definitely built way more interesting things. But I want to hand over to Akshay due to the lack of time. So he's going to talk a bit about the things we learned from user feedback. Over to you, Akshay.
Thanks, Kevin. So we had, after we released the new math expressions in the new math classroom, we actually had a user study where we got a lot of very relevant feedback. So some of the advantages and some of the evidences that we got that showed that this was working was that there were like a couple of 9-year-olds that were able to learn multiplication without any prerequisite knowledge, all by themselves using the platform, which was quite a good achievement. There was also the evidence that the different structures that we had, like topics, stories, and subtopics that Kevin mentioned, were working because students were tested after they completed a story, and they were tested after they had time to look at concept cards and subtopics. So these concept cards and subtopics don't have any extra material than stories. It's just a way for learners to quickly revise the subtopic without going through the entire story. So when testing them after both of these instances, we found the test scores to increase after they were able to revise with the subtopics. So this showed that subtopics can be a good way for learners to revise the topics that they learn, even after a long time when they don't have, even without going through the entire story themselves. There was a couple of feedbacks we obtained. So some of the things we're going to do for 2021 are allow users to save progress in an exploration. So this is currently not possible. So this would allow users to resume lessons from where they left off. Adding more animations to make the overall exploration play a more enjoyable experience for users, because most of the users are young, and having more animations would help them draw into the exploration. And add a playlist functionality for topics and stories, so that they can organize their work a lot more, and also make have a better organized. So these are the feedback we obtained from them, and these are the results that we have. So I'll hand over to Ria, who will talk about the basic math lesson.
Thanks, Akshay. So hi everyone, I'm Ria. I'm the lead of the art team and the learner feedback team here at Oppia, and I'll be giving you some information about our lessons and their progress. So far we've created our first basic math curriculum, which covers 8 topics in total, the last 2 of which will be coming out very soon. And these topics range all the way from place values to decimals and include a total of 53 lessons and over 100 skills. Now, this has been a massive effort by numerous volunteers from all around the world who have come together to collaborate and contribute in all sorts of ways, including the creation of lessons, the creation of their illustrations. You can see some of them right here. The translations of lessons and their voiceovers, basically pretty much everything that makes up our lessons. And the success of these lessons is tested through our learner feedback program, through which we work closely with our target students to confirm the validity of our lessons and also just to measure their effectiveness. Now, some of our future plans include wrapping up the full basic math curriculum and then moving on to publish some lessons in our second batch, which essentially includes higher level math topics like percentages, measurements, etc. And yeah, over to you, Sean.
Thank you. I was trying to find the unmute button. Now you've heard a lot about the cool stuff that we've been doing in 2020 to make sure that we have a lesson curriculum out. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about looking forward to 2021. So last year, we were really busy on actually trying to make the lessons and the platform support the lessons and all that in the first place. Now that it's done, we actually have newfound freedom to improve the lessons and experience based on feedback from students. And in fact, one of the things we are planning to do this year is to really try and make sure we prioritize properly so that students become the front and center of the continued work we do. And so, in line with starting with the students, I would like to turn it over now to Himanshu and Wala, who have been working to try the lessons out with students in India and Palestine. And they will now tell you a little more about their experiences.
Yeah, thanks, Shan. I'm Himanshu from India. Vala and I have been doing user studies from past 2 months in Palestine and India, respectively. So we started from 2 students and we have reached till 30 students entirely based on word of mouth. The schools in India are closed from past 10 months. So we faced a lot of challenges based upon the students because they were not in touch with their studies. All the students are from the age group of 6 to 13 years. Around 93% attend government schools, while the rest go to a low fee private school. The initial challenge was to find out the students who have a smartphone plus internet access. And the next challenge was to make them technology friendly. The other thing that is of main concern is the English text, but I believe that it's going to be sorted out very soon. The only thing that the students do not like about Oppia is that, if they could not complete the lesson in single go, when they replay the lesson, it starts from the very first question. But the students are very smart. They have come up with a fix for it. They note down all the answers on the notebook, and when they replay the lesson, they just enter the correct answers through their notebooks without actually going for any calculations. And here in India, the students very much relied on the voiceovers. I think it would be great if we can have a playback speed control for the voiceovers like we have for YouTube videos. The rest of the things were pretty much amazing for the students. It's like more fun for them because they're learning technology plus mathematics with the help of technology. So it's kind of a fresh experience for them. They can easily relate with the stories that are told in Oppia lessons. I would like to share one experience with all of you. Just few days ago, I met with a mother who works as a cleaner. And unfortunately, her husband has been missing for past 2 years. She wanted to enroll 2 of her children for these Oppia lessons. I told her that these lessons are completely free to access, and contributors from all over the globe are working hard to make these lessons effective and enjoyable for the students. So just after attending 2 days of class, the student came up to me and told me that when he'll grow up, he'll go to America and he'll work on computers to make more such lessons. So I was really elated to hear about this, and I told him that definitely you're going to America, and please don't forget to bring some chocolates for me. The rest of the things are going very well. All the students really enjoy it. I would like to address Vala so that she can share her experience based on the online studies she conducted in Palestine.
Hi everyone, my name is Wala and I have been conducting facilitated studies in Palestine. As you all know, Palestine is actually an occupied territory. Thus, let's say the connection and the internet, internet conditions here are really tough, and they are not available all the day, and they are not that good. I have conducted online lessons with 9 students for different lessons. Like after completion of all the lessons, they were actually very effective because many of the parents told me that their parents have done like their performance at schools have enhanced and developed because and they started to understand the things that they usually used to miss. The challenges that I have faced is that since last March, Palestinian schools are closed, and Palestinian students in general do not have that knowledge in tech and, like, let's say, technical techniques, technical tools, or something like this. Thus, before starting the lessons, I needed to teach the students about how to use Zoom or maybe Microsoft Teams. Then they picked Microsoft Teams because they are it is the prospected let's say channel for students to learn at schools if they ever came back to e-learning at schools. So that was actually the main challenge. And the second challenge was is that the environment here in Pakistan is not that supportive for e-learning because many parents do not actually believe in the effectiveness of e-learning. Thus they say yeah, our kids are going to play as they just always do with the devices. But after the completion of the lessons, many of the parents actually have changed their minds, and they told me that yes, they have seen the improvement or the enhancement that they on their children, especially after their gradings at school or something like this. Another than this, I actually have seen like parents who told me that their kids have started to play the lessons, which actually one of the best things that I have heard regarding the lessons, because many of the students told me that the lessons are really enjoyable. But when a parent says that their kid is actually playing the lessons instead of playing PUBG or any other game, it's actually very nice to hear this, because it's a great time to use your time after, the great way to use your time after all. Additionally, I have been working on the parent guide. I have actually translated a parent guide from English to Arabic, and I have shared it with multiple families. And the parent guide have been like the feedback I have got, that the parent guide is actually understandable, and it told parents, or let's say it made the parents focused on many of the points that they did not actually focus on before. For example, a mom told me that she started to be more encouraging because she read in the parent guide that she has to be encouraging, and it was not a thing that she used to do. Thus, she started to encourage her kids before they go out every day. Maybe when she gave them a sandwich or something, she started to send them notes or give them notes about saying that you're spectacular, you're handsome, you're great, you're smart, or something like this. And she told me that after giving her kids those notes, she actually have noticed the improvement or the enhancement in their academic performance. Other thing, I have actually met a student who is completely convinced that she's stupid. She told me that she can't solve multiplication just because she's stupid. But when I told her that you're not stupid, you just can't solve multiplication because you do not memorize the multiplication table. And when I mentioned that in front of her mother, she told me that yes, she went through the parent guide, and she regrets that she said to her student that she is stupid. Thus, she started to memorize the multiplication table with her child, actually. And she told me that she went with the multiplication lessons with her child because the mother herself is not educated, thus she does not know the multiplication table. So she told me that she learned the multiplication table with her child through Oppia lessons. And this is actually one of the greatest things that I have heard regarding the parent guide. Another thing that I have been working on about the parent guide is many parents in Palestine are not actually educated. You can see many parents that cannot read or write, or reading. Reading in general is not a very thing. It's not a thing that many people do. Thus, I have been working on creating a video tutorial, maybe a video parent guide, so that I can share it with the parents, and it's gonna be in Arabic. So and I try my best to share it like on social media platforms, the social media platforms that are mostly used by Palestinian parents, so that it will be more convincing and more reachable to many parents. And that's it. I address back to Sean.
Thank you so much, Wala and Himanshu. It is awesome to hear about different stories from India and Palestine. And so to follow on from that, one of the things that's actually really important in these demographics and other demographics around the world is the ability to support multiple languages. We have managed so far, for the most part, with students reading the lessons in English and listening to the lessons in reading the lessons in English and listening to the lessons in some cases in native language voiceovers, such as Hindi or English and so on. But in places like Palestine, students only are in an environment which is fully Arabic. So reading English might be like, like they say, reading Greek. And so one of the things that David, one of our contributors, has done is to make it possible for lessons to be played in different languages. This is not quite on the site yet because we are still ironing out some remaining issues, but it actually should be available for some lessons starting with the upcoming release, so in a few days, 3 or 4. And then after that, we'll need to do some work to finalize the case where students can actually submit answers in text. Because we want to submitting answers in Devanagari or in Devanagari or Arabic or other languages as well. So as you can imagine, this is quite a difficult technical challenge. You'll also notice that we support, the language on the right is not, there's nothing in the drop down because of a bug, but it's not actually Hindi, it's Hinglish, which means that it's a mixture of Hindi and English. Because that's what students speak colloquially. A lot of there are some key mathematical words in English that have a harder translation to Hindi. So our priority is always what can the student understand and how can we break down the language barriers as much as possible. And so that's why we do this. I also want to call out our amazing community of translators and voiceovers who are helping to translate the lessons into multiple languages, from Spanish to French to Arabic to Hindi and others. And also, folks like Anjali who do the voiceovers for English, and other folks are doing voiceovers for like different languages as well, because these things really help the students and provide better accessibility for the lessons and make them wider, make them have a wider reach, so that more students can think there for them. The reason this is so important also is because sometimes even when a student can read English, if they're not fluent with the language, they may look at it and think, oh gosh, this is too much effort. I have to actually struggle to sort of like get through it. And so even if a student can theoretically read English, we still want to remove the barrier of them having to put a lot of cognitive work into that, so that they can focus on learning the key concepts that we are trying to teach, which is actually the mathematics. So now I turn it over to Sandeep to talk a little more about the contributor dashboard.
Thanks. Yeah. Oppia is a great community for lesson creation, and we thought of what if we make it easier for anyone to contribute to our lessons. This will open up a platform for anyone to help lesson creation team in multiple aspects, ranging from helping translate lessons in regional languages, allowing artists to share artwork for the lessons, allowing anyone to add practice questions at any scale. We have started off with launching a contributor dashboard page in December 2020, which allows anyone to translate lessons of their choice. In the initial release, we do found lots of issues like review bottlenecks, lagginess, UI issues, etc. We are fixing all such issues subsequently. Going ahead, we are working on scaling the dashboard to support lots of contributors and reviewers. And we are also enabling the practice question contribution process very soon. This was all about how we are making it easier for contributor to help Oppia in building great lessons. I'm handing over to Ben, who will talk about how we are making our lessons more accessible to learner via our new Android app.
Thanks, Sandeep. So one of the things that we've noticed, both in our studies and from other students and teachers and parents that have reached out to us, is that offline is one of the key use cases. You can see the graphic in the lower right. It's not completely up to date. It's a few years old, but the colors, just the contrast between them, kind of emphasizes one of the huge problems here, which is connectivity is still missing or at least diminished in so many areas around the world. And this leaves hundreds of millions of students behind compared to most of the other existing solutions that exist out there for teaching and for learning. And so the team has started a project a couple of years ago to build an Android app to bridge this gap and actually be able to provide lessons in an offline context. We've been working since late 2019 on this project. And to date, we've built an experience that covers a high fidelity core learning experience for lessons, which covers most of our existing numeracy module that we're building. We've ensured that the lessons do work in an offline context. And we've also been able to explore ways that we can improve the overall Oppia integration experience in ways that it's a little bit more difficult to do on the web side of things, such as providing profiles so that a single Android device can be shared among different members of the same household, which we've found from studies is going to be a very likely use case for the Android app. We've also, fortunately, we're in a position where we're able to start a very successful community of contributors. Since we're building this project from scratch, seeing people come in and help out with it is one of the best parts of working on it. And this is something that's continuing to grow every single day. But looking forward to 2021, there's still a bunch of work that we want to do yet. We want to specifically focus on improving the topic access and upgrade flows. We want to make sure that users can download topics and that they can get updates to them. We also want to build in support for syncing progress across multiple devices in the event that somebody does need to purchase a new device or they lose their old one. We don't want all of their progress to be lost. But most importantly, there's two big initiatives this year. One is starting targeted user studies to verify the efficacy of the app and see what other gaps we should be bridging to make sure that we're able to reach these students effectively, as well as launching a public beta so we can start bringing in students and increase the access for offline education for the Oppia platform. So we find it very much key that we're focusing on these particular students and understanding exactly what their needs are in offline contexts. I'm going to hand it over to Sean.
All right, thanks, Ben. So as you've heard, we've done quite a lot of progress on the platform side of things and actually building the infrastructure and the lessons and so on. And in fact, when we talk about having published our basic mathematics curriculum, that actually only happened last month. So that is kind of breaking news at this point. As a result, probably the most important thing now is actually spreading the word, because that's probably the largest barrier that students have in terms of the Oppia lessons, is that they don't know that they exist. And we already have been doing, studies that suggest that these lessons would be very useful to students if they knew that they existed. And so that's kind of like the largest thing that we want to focus on this year, to make sure that we can improve the marketing and so on, so that that's the case. Oppia has historically taken a slightly unusual approach, perhaps, to spreading the word and growth, which is to not worry about it until we've actually figured out that the lessons are good. There's a lot of noise in the educational technology space. And we kind of want to, make sure we put something out there that we can stand behind. So with that background, I'm going to turn it over to Melanie and Kirti, who will talk about Oppia's partnership and marketing efforts in 2021.
So I'm Kirti, and I'm a part of the growth team. So given that lessons have been launched, we now have to focus on driving the user growth. So our key focus as part of the growth team is to bring in more users to the platform. And with that as focus, we start off our 2021. So one other key insight is that most of our user base and the target audience actually use Facebook as a platform for their primary source of knowledge. So that's one of the reasons why we've started off with the Facebook marketing channel this year. Apart from that, we also market across different channels. One is blog posts, second is in terms of email newsletters. So we want to be able to drive a consistent message, and formulating new marketing guidelines that can establish a consistent marketing message from across these different channels is also a priority for this year. I'll now pass it on to Melanie, who will talk about partnerships.
Hello, so this year partnerships will be focused on expanding our outreach in key countries across Africa, Middle East, and Asia, while also supporting our existing partners in Ghana who are currently preparing to conduct outreach to schools, since they have currently reopened, with the goal of being to partner with schools to establish like an after-school club that students can go and use Oppia whenever they feel like it. Not only do we reach out to partners, but they have also reached out to us from a variety of different regions, such as Turkey, Sierra Leone, and Nepal, just to name a few. Our initial focus for the partnerships team will be to streamline our partnerships onboarding process to make it easier for them to get on, and proactively reach out to potential partners in key regions to identify opportunities, as well as address any potential obstacles such as limited number of resources, unmotivated educators, lack of parental support for their child's education, limited digital literacy knowledge, which may all hinder the collaboration process. Once that is all accomplished, then we will focus on ensuring that partners are actively using the lessons with their students in their respective regions by utilizing a dashboard to track growth acquired from partnership outreach efforts. We will also work with our partners to raise awareness for the upcoming app release. Thank you.
And if you have any suggestions for marketing and growth, or if you've got any nonprofits that you feel would benefit from the work that we do, for example, those who, only are able to send volunteers to meet with students for maybe 1 or 2 hours a week, something like Oppia can actually help when the students are by themselves, so that they can learn some things on the app and then use the time wisely with the volunteers. If any of you have any suggestions for partnerships, please let us know, and we'll do our best to reach out. Okay. And then lastly, I would like to talk a little bit about stable infrastructure. The Oppia Foundation's activities rest a lot on having a really good, well-maintained platform that actually works, because the lessons are online, and it's important that that platform is stable up. So I want to pass it on to Voita and Rohit to talk a little bit about the work that we are doing on stability.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Voita, and together with Rohit, we lead the stability team. Stability team is actually responsible for making sure that all the data that we have are valid and consistent with our assumptions about the data. This is primarily important to the aforementioned Android application that Ben was talking about, because in order to have offline data, we need to have them like pretty consistent and pretty valid, so that anything doesn't break when the device is offline. And also when we were implementing privacy-related stuff last year, like the ability for the users to delete themselves or to get their data, we found that we have like many data that are broken in some sense and that are problematic. So our plan this year is actually start with making sure that the data that we have are fixed and consistent. We are utilizing jobs that were previously written for this, and we are mostly going through the results and trying to fix the data by running the jobs on them. After we know that our data are fixed, we want to make sure in the future that the data doesn't break again. So this includes in one part, making sure that when we save the data, when someone creates an exploration and saves it, the exploration is valid and in that time, and it stays valid after that, after some edits are done to it. This is also like improved by adding types to our code. So last year we made sure that our front-end code base is fully typed in TypeScript. And this year we will make sure that after we migrate to Python 3, which will be mentioned later, we actually want to have a fully typed Python code base this year. And the third responsibility of our team is to have a proper tool set for deprecating and removing old stuff that we no longer need. This is partially some code that we needed previously, and we still have it because we are not exactly sure if it can be removed safely, or it will be also required for moving forward when we decide that some of our features is no longer needed because it was, for example, replaced by something new. so that it can be properly removed and easily removed without any problems and any drawbacks. So now I will pass to Brian and Srijan, who will talk about our efforts on Google App Engine and Angular migrations.
Okay, thanks, Vaida. Yeah, so I guess to start with, it's a little late, but Oppia turned 8 last November. So it's already been 8 years since it started, and we're still able to do all these amazing things, which is really encouraging. And also, as Sean mentioned before, really important that we keep things working. So as you can imagine, since it's old, and as you kind of need to keep like watering and fertilizing gardens to keep them fresh, we need to keep updating Oppia, like Oppia's code and core libraries, to keep it healthy and like actually working. So those two are the projects that Srijan and I are working on specifically. So I am working on the backend code, which is currently in the process of migrating to Python 2 to Python 3. Here I have like a list of libraries specifically that we need to do, and that are not easy to do, unfortunately. So this is kind of like where most of the backend work has been focused on. I'm going to hand off to Srijan now so he can explain how the Angular side of things are going.
Thanks, Brian. Hi guys, my name is Srijan, and I'm leading the migration for the front end from AngularJS to Angular. And Oppia Web, before Oppia Android, was the place where people used to come and learn the lessons. So it was really important for us to move to the latest Angular versions every time. And AngularJS to Angular was a big jump for all of us. Currently, our website loads both the old framework and the new framework. So basically, we are loading two things that end up doing the same thing. So that sort of reduces the speed of our website and how fast it loads up. And the regressions on the user-facing side, but there are also some regressions on the developer side where some features we just cannot develop because of the state of our front end, because we have like two frameworks going on at the same time. And it really requires a lot of good collaboration to go across. And this has been something that we've been doing very nicely, and really hope to get rid of AngularJS, the old framework, pretty soon in 2021. I would like to hand over to Chris, who leads the automated QA team, one of the really important teams for developers here. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Srijan. So I'm Chris, and I lead the automated QA team, which looks after all of the automated tests in the Oppia web repository. Our goal is to ensure that the main version of our code is always correct, so that the website never breaks. End-to-end tests are important to this effort because they simulate the core user experience. They make sure that the entire app and all of its various components work together properly. It's actually pretty cool to watch an end-to-end test run. It's like an invisible user poking things around on the browser. I've actually had some new contributors get spooked because it's like there's a ghost in their computer browsing Oppia. So in April of 2020, which is where the slide begins on the left, the end-to-end test started flaking. This means that they would sometimes pass and they would sometimes fail, even though there were no changes made to the code in between. So I'm going to give a brief overview of the team's work on fixing these flakes and collecting the data on which flakes are the worst before I move on to our future plans. So to begin with flakiness, we started with a full audit of all of the tests to try and find all the problems we could see and just fix all of them. This intensive audit was great, but it was completely unsustainable. So after about a month, we switched to debugging and fixing just the worst problems in the tests. By the end of 2020, we'd fixed most of the problems with the test code, and so now we were finding actual problems in the Oppia code base. These had slipped in because when the tests were flaky, we all got in the habit of ignoring test failures, and so didn't catch these problems as they were being introduced. So now to switch over to the data side. At first, we had developers file issues to report the flakes that they were seeing. We quickly found that virtually no one was reporting, so a couple of us started counting each week's flakes manually on the main branch of the code base. But by the end of the year, we were pretty tired of counting flakes by hand, at least I was, and we were also hearing about flakes that we weren't seeing in the main branch. So we built a new logging server to track the results of every end-to-end test run on any branch of the code base. So the resulting metrics that we have now give us much better insight into what developers are actually experiencing. So jumping over to the right side of the slide and looking forward to 2021, in the first quarter, we're going to be focused on reducing test flakiness and speeding up the tests from their current 2+ hours to under 30 minutes. In fact, we should be getting rather close to this milestone in the next week or so. For the rest of the year, we'll be writing new tests to cover the entire project, so that by the end, all the code in the project should be covered by tests. And at the end, we'll be spreading what we've learned about writing tests to the rest of the Oppia community. Thanks, back to you, Sean.
Thanks very much, Chris. So one of the important things as we move forward as a community and the server becomes stable is to keep the server stable. So this increasing coverage of tests is actually really important for the code base so that we don't break anything in the future. So yeah, I want to spend just a little bit of time on, team health and happiness and talking about, how we conduct ourselves as a community. We really have we are so fortunate to have such a talented and passionate team from all around the world who wants to do the best for our students. But I also want to mention that bringing together a large project like this that we all care about so much, can be hard. And we always want to ensure that this is a project that each of you enjoy and find a lot of fulfillment in contributing to. So I just wanted to put in a word about self-care because this is a marathon and not a sprint. And I want to emphasize also that the most important thing here is communication, right? Normally when we talk to contributors, we ask that they do two things. The first is that they do what they say they will do. And the second is, to escalate quickly if there are any issues. And the second one is more important. That is, if you can't follow through with a commitment, that's okay, as long as you let us know, because we really, really want you to be happy, learn new things, but not burn yourselves out. So don't hesitate to ask for support if you need it, and let's work together. We can definitely help each other. There's a lot of us. And also, more generally, if there's anything we can do to help improve your contribution experience or your well-being, or you need any help, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can always email me, for example, or the lead of the project that you're working with. I'll give you a little bit of an example of some of the changes that we are making this year to try and help things run sustainably. One thing that we are doing is to make sure that everyone, that every team has a co-lead, so that everyone on the team can take a break, including the leads, at any given time, right? So we are trying to sort of like build up some resiliency there. And the other thing that we are trying to do is to really prioritize carefully this year. Don't take on more things than we can handle. It's much better to do a great job at like a few small things and then celebrate the successes and then move on to the next thing, rather than try to tackle like 100 things at once and then get almost nowhere on any of them. So you'll see hopefully that over this year a lot of the efforts will be more focused and we'll actually be doing some fairly rigorous prioritization just to make sure that we do the best thing that we can for the students that we are trying to support. If you have any suggestions about this or anything else, I also want you to know that we are very open to your ideas, and you're more than welcome to raise them with me or your team leads at any time. We really care about the journey being a fulfilling and enjoyable one, and we'll work very hard to make that happen. I also cannot close this meeting without saying thank you, a very big thank you to all our wonderful contributors. Oppia is a huge community. It's grown to like more than 100 people. And these people involve folks who are helping with not only development, but also design, voiceovers, translations, art, creating lessons, trying out the lessons to students, reaching out to organizations, marketing, you name it, right? There's a lot of stuff that is going on. And it is because of this wonderful community around the world who helps each other and who makes it all possible. In fact, one of the long-term dreams for Oppia is to be a bit like Wikipedia, right? Where people pitch in and contribute in the ways in which they have expertise, and together build something that's bigger than any of us individually. So this project is truly a team effort, and I really want to say thanks. I didn't realize that there'll be a lot of like pictures on the Meet screen, but I did try to compile a little collage. It's only a partial list, and it's mainly determined by who I could find pictures for. But yeah, this is only a small fraction of what is truly a global community, and we are so happy to be working with folks from all over the world, from India to America to various places in Africa to I don't quite sorry, yeah, I saw a comment at it then. But yep, to South America. In fact, I think we have representation in all the continents of the world except Antarctica, and perhaps Australia. So I think that's kind of awesome. And by the way, speaking of a large community, it might be a good idea to at some point maybe meet up for games and stuff. I think during this pandemic era, social interaction is quite important, and I think take the opportunity to meet folks from around the world and say hi. Okay, and now in our last 15 minutes, we'll move on to questions. As a reminder, if you haven't seen it yet, this is the slide. This is the Slido where you can enter questions and vote them up. And we'll now start taking the top questions. Kevin, I can't remember. Are you presenting or am I?
I can present.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we'll start from the top and we'll do as many as we can within the remaining part of the hour. So to start with, last year 12 students were selected in Oppia, 3 Android plus 9 web. Will it be double this year? 24, 6 Android plus 18 web. I'll turn it over to Voita.
Yeah, I don't think it will be double, but it will be more, most probably, if there are enough prospective students, I would say. We have more mentors than last year, I think, but we will see, and it will depend on the students.
Yeah, one thing I'll say based on previous years is that the limiting factor is actually the number of students we feel could actually complete a project, and not so much a limitation on slots and so on. We are always limited by the number of slots that we are offered, but typically, we have gotten what we've asked for, and so really the limiting factor is the quality of the proposal and the contributions. But we try our best to accept, any student who meets the bar. One thing I also mentioned, by the way, for those who don't understand what on earth this question is about, is it's about a program called Google Summer of Code, where we have folks do 3 months stints coding on the Oppia code basis during the summer. Okay, next question. Is Oppia participating in GSOC 21? If yes, are there any projects in mind for the Oppia Android repository? So, Ben.
Hopefully it was clear from the discussion that we are participating. There's I think 8 projects that we have briefly spec'd out. I think the theme this year for Android is very much in line with what Sean said about keeping things focused. So a lot of our projects are either directly along the critical path of things that we need to build for our beta or our later global availability launch. And there's a couple of projects that are also very high priorities projects to sustain the development team. So these are kind of the themes. We should have a published project list with the rest of the Oppia team soon.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, Oppia seems like a hidden gem. While it has taken an innovative approach towards teaching, its presence in the world seems pale when compared to Udemy, etc. plan. I think this ties a little bit into what I said just now about how we've only just finished the lessons. And so only now we are starting or sort of we've been setting up marketing and partnerships efforts before, but now it's actually much easier because we have something very specific to point to. Right, because there's a difference between marketing something and saying, hey, come look at these lessons, and then the lessons are actually not there yet, versus being able to, think through the flows of users all the way through the landing pages and so on. So we do hope that this is something that will improve this year, and we are working quite hard on it. Kirti and Melanie, I don't know if you want to add any more to that.
I think it's a point well summarized by Sean. So yeah, we do have the lessons, and lessons have been created right now. And we intend to focus marketing efforts this year through multiple channels. We already have set up a newsletter channel. There's also the email newsletters. We're also advertising through Google Ads. And Facebook is something that we are concentrating on this year. hopefully we'll be able to a good job there. And the other thing is we've also taken new user acquisition as a target this year. So where we'll be driving new users to the platform. So that's another thing that we intend to focus on in 2021.
I should also mention that one thing that's important for us is not just raising the numbers of users, but also making sure that we reach specifically students from underserved populations. And so one of the things that we'll be working on is trying to make sure that we do that, right? Because if equity is our goal, it's very important that we reach that demographic as well. All right. Anytime in the future, can we expect the designers to give a talk on what goes on behind the scenes while designing Oppia and what influences their decisions? Are there any designers in the audience? Because I don't think there are any on the panel. And if you are a designer, please speak up.
Chantal isn't here right now, but I think I could speak for her. I think as of right now, we're planning on just scaling the art team and kind of recruiting as many people as we can. But I think once that's done, this is a really good idea, and maybe it's something that we can think about doing sometime in the future. But as of right now, our goals are just primarily scaling. Okay, great.
Yep, Nitesh is Nitesh, Akshay, Srijan, and Kevin are helping us do events, and so if you have ideas for an event, please do submit it to them, and we'll try and do what we can to make it happen. One thing that actually really helps is knowing what the community is interested in. So this is probably something that we'll try and put on the radar. Okay, how can the learners interact with each other for their doubts and other purposes? The feedback section might not be enough. Akshay and Kevin, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so what do you mean by learners interacting with each other? Because I mean, we could probably have some sort of, we have subscriptions where learners can subscribe for exploration, explorations from a single creator, and there is a suggestions method also. So if the learner suggests, like, has any suggestions for the exploration itself, like maybe editing some exploration states or content, that is also a feature, but I'm not sure what else the question is about.
I think it's probably
like a chat platform.
Something like, if a learner has doubts, how can they talk to other learners, I suppose, to sort of like get feedback is my interpretation of the question. But I also think that there are issues, with just sort of running an unmoderated chat platform online, especially in today's era, right? So we have to be a little bit careful about that. I think, I guess the answer is that we are not sure. I mean, hopefully what we can do is understand what the doubts are so that we can try and address them within the lesson itself. It may be a bit hard to get synchronous feedback, like feedback in the moment, in real time. But yeah, one of the things that we could do, I suppose, is to use the feedback to drive improvements to the lessons and so on. Yeah. Okay, why Oppia does not give any swag? Oh, by the way, whoever asked that question, I'm not totally sure we gave a satisfactory answer. If you have more ideas along these lines, please feel free to discuss them with Akshay and me if you like, and we'll try and figure out whether we can do something here and what the need is. Okay. Oh, but I also wanted to point out that if many of our learners are not having high internet connectivity as well, then I don't know whether it's possible to, expect a lot of them to be fully online to answer questions and so on. So that's something that, yeah, I think we can talk about or think about a little more. Okay, why does Oppia not give any swag to its contributors? Maybe after merging of 2 to 3 PRs, they can give some goodies. So it's a nice idea, but I can tell you from what I've heard from other programs that giving swag is quite a massive endeavor. You have to handle logistics, you have to handle posting, it's procurement and so on, inventory of the swag, and it's not exactly in line with our core mission. right? So it will end up being quite a lot of work, on material gifts, which also seems sort of like not totally in line with like the non-profit nature of things. The GSOC T-shirt, I'm sorry, is this is responding to a comment on the chat thread. The GSOC T-shirt is not handled by us, I'm afraid. That's a GSOC decision, and more related to that program. But hopefully, this gives you some idea of why we don't do the swag. It's just like cost prohibitive, and we don't really have the resources to run something like that. However, we hope you would take pride in your contributions to the platform, and the overall mission. Yeah, so I think that's the answer. We could make a YouTube channel or Instagram page, as these two have a much larger reach, especially for teenagers, and they could tell younger siblings about Oppia. Kitty. Is Kitty still here?
I'm here.
Okay. Did you get a question?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. As in terms of how would it be integrated into Google? Could you repeat the question?
No. The question is, we could make a YouTube channel or Instagram page, as these two have a much larger reach, especially for teenagers, and they could tell younger siblings about Oppia.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have only realized the importance of setting up a marketing channel this year, for Facebook particularly. So I think we would be working on an Instagram once the Facebook channel is set up. So one by one, I guess.
Yeah, we originally had, I think, multiple ideas for social media, but then realized we didn't quite have the resources at the moment to support lots of channels. So we want to do one well first, in line with prioritization, make sure Facebook works well, and then continue on to other things. Okay, what can Oppia offer to bring more enthusiastic learners? Rewarding certifications, quality education, etc. I think maybe as a high level, I can sort of like talk about that a little. A lot depends on demographic here, right? And if we sort of like look at the actual problems that students face, you've actually heard stuff from Wala and Himanshu that are a little bit different from what this question is suggesting. Things like making the lessons accessible in the different languages. Things like the external considerations, like being told that you're not stupid, or being told that, or having a conducive environment to learn. That's actually some of the important things for reaching the people that we are trying to reach. And so one thing I want to point out is that it's actually very easy to make a lot of assumptions about what is good for learners, what would be better for learners, and so on. But I think it's very important also to make sure that we go to those learners and ask them, what is important for you? And try to sort of gear our efforts towards that. And so I think often people who are talking about certifications and so on tend to be already in a tier above the learners that we are trying to reach. And so that's not entirely the focus of what we are doing at the moment. I heard that GSOC this year will be a part-time program. Would that affect the complexity of the projects? Void.
Yeah, sorry. So the complexity of our projects will be affected, basically meaning that we are trying to have a half-sized project because the program is half-sized. That's easily the main thing we are trying.
Okay. Next, knew that Oppia was a project initiated by Google. Wants to know whether it will get integrated into the set of Google products like Google Classroom. So Oppia did actually start as a 20% project at Google, but subsequently it actually moved out of Google, and it is now very much its own nonprofit. That's a separate entity. There are no plans, therefore, to just integrate it into like Google products like Google Classroom and so on. we are getting some support and help for things like, you know, the Android app development. But for the most part, this is very much like, you know, a separate organization. And so there aren't plans for like direct integration into Google products. Although we do have a link to Google Classroom on the lesson page, such that teachers can take a lesson and share it within Google Classroom for their students. So things like that are useful, but we do things that are available to that everyone can do. Should we consider upgrading the Oppia code base to run on Python 3? Python 2 is not supported and not available directly with the latest Linux distributions. Brian.
Yes. Yes, in all capital letters. Unfortunately, there's in the slide I showed, there are like 4 sub-projects we need to do first before we can consider ourselves on Python 3. But right now, we are very much still on 2, kind of in a hybrid state. But yes, we want to be on Python 3 as soon as possible.
After completing GSOC, will we get a referral to Google? I can answer that. The answer is, well, actually, the answer from our side is no, not as such. Like, you know, we aren't going to just give you a referral to Google just because. But I'm not quite sure what they do on the GSOC side itself. Maybe a former GSOC student can comment. Okay, well,
I guess I could.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, I think Sarthak actually answered in the chat. They did years ago. They would, if you completed the program, you could ask for a referral, but it sounds like they might not be doing that anymore.
Okay, how many questions do we have left, Kevin? Okay, that's quite a lot. I think let's stay on and answer a few more questions because we rarely get this opportunity. But of course, if folks want to go, please feel free. Are we working on making the creation of explorations easy? Currently, it's a bit difficult for a user to create a lesson on their first visit. Kevin. Okay, I'm not sure whether Kevin. Wait, Kevin is presenting, so he is still around. I think it's you.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay. So the question was, are we working on making the creation of exploration easy? Yes, we are. We did actually do a project on redesigning the interfaces, the the creator-facing interfaces. Is that what you meant by creating making the creation process easy, or? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I will mention that if we do this again, it may be a good idea to, you know, ask what do you call it? Add your name to the question. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult to seek clarification. So yeah, but in terms of making creation of explorations easy, I think the main thing is if you could maybe post on the post something on the issue tracker with more specifics on the difficulties that happen when you try to create an exploration, then I suggest that that you do that, and then we can try and figure out how to fix it. Okay, I'm actually noticing that a number of the panelists are dropping off. So let's just take one more question. Okay, I think we'll skip the Wojtek question because Wojtek has actually gone. Let's talk about, thanks for sharing the story, Himanshu and Wala. Do we have any Oppia local group which helps parents and students? If yes, is there any way to join the group? So I think Ria also had to leave the call. But one of the things that Ria is starting up is a learner feedback program. Why are there so many questions about GSOC? Okay. Ria is starting up a learner feedback program. And one of the things that she's doing is to compile instructions for people doing user studies and learner feedback sections around the world. And so if you have kids in your local neighborhood or parents in your local neighborhood who would benefit from these lessons, please send her and me an email. Or if you if you don't know our emails, then talk to whoever is your connection to the Oppia code base, and they'll put you in touch with us. And we can give you more instructions. But yes, we do want to help form these local communities so that other people can, teach lessons to the facilitate the use of the lessons with their students and with their kids and make that scale. Okay. I think we have actually passed enough time. So I want to say thank you again for taking the time to attend this meeting. It's very nice to see all of you. And like I said, take care of yourselves. It's hopefully going to be a better year than 2020. But it's still challenging. So if you need any support, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, thank you again for contributing to the project, and we hope to see you at a future event. We have a feedback form. If you want to, tell us a little bit about how useful this event was, or you want to have suggestions for future events, you'll find it in the chat. But yeah, thank you all very much, and have a lovely weekend, and see you all soon. Bye.
Bye.